Hi, I'm Nancy with Stony Creek Yarn, and you're watching Along Stony Creek. Welcome back if you're new. Welcome back if you've been here before. Welcome if you're new. I'm Nancy. I am the head dyer, chief cook, and bottle washer behind Stony Creek Yarn. This is my podcast about knitting, yarn dyeing, crocheting, sewing, and yes, there is sewing content today, and a little bit about my life along Stony Creek, which is indeed spelled correctly. I have been corrected, and it is S-T-O-N-Y here along Stony Creek. Up creek, it's S-T-O-N-E-Y. I have no idea why. I live along Stony Creek in beautiful Michigan, southeast Michigan. I'm 28 miles north of Toledo, 28 miles south of Detroit, and 28 miles southeast of Ann Arbor, Michigan, where two of my adult four children, I forgot one of my kids, live. It's like when they were little and I was like 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you here? Do a head count. And once you have more than two, it becomes once you're outnumbered as a parent, just outnumbered in general, it becomes a little more difficult. But they're all adults now. I live here along Stony Creek near the shores of Lake Erie with two of my other children, Hearn and Gerald, who are 20 and 18, almost 19 years old. My two cats, Kit and Hope, Zool, my golden doodle, who is asleep soundly in my bedroom right now, and my three rats, Pip, Pop, and Bear from Bear in the Big Blue House, who I will not show because some people get really squicked out by rats. None of them go in the dye studio, especially not the rats. They couldn't get out there if they wanted to. They're in a big critter nation. So real quickly before I do anything else, I'm in southeast Michigan, and you may have heard we had a tornado Thursday. I was at a meeting at a local yarn store. I was not home. And my two kids now both of my younger children are on the autism spectrum. And one of them was blatantly freaking out. I mean, just losing their poo. It's like, can't get the rats to the basement. They're in a big critter nation cage, huge cage, double critter nation cage. Grab the cats, grab the dog. If the cats won't stay, don't go after them. So then they decided that they would go to the basement if they saw a funnel, which we've discussed, and not doing that anymore if it's tornado warning, which we were under. And it started downtown in Monroe and came right out just southeast of us, right through a beach southeast of us, about a quarter mile away. And they watched it. And Jerry's like, as a tornado mom, that had to be a tornado. I couldn't see a funnel, but it had to be a tornado. I'm like, then why didn't you go to the basement? It was so cool. Just got nothing to say now. I'm just irked, and that is that. I am just thrilled they are okay. I am thrilled their house was not damaged. I feel horrible for the people whose homes were severely damaged. And there are a lot of looky-loos going down there. We had on our next door app that, please stop coming down here to look. If you're coming, help. That sounds fair. Okay, so I'm in this meeting with this local yarn store. I'm talking to the kids. It was just, the alarms were going off. No one was, it was really an interesting day. And apparently I was nervous about going to this local yarn store because I get nervous. I get very nervous if I'm going to meet with a yarn store and I might run into the woman in Kroger or Meijer. Those two of our grocery stores around here. Usually Meijer, you run into people. It's a big box chain that's in Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, and Indiana, and maybe a couple other states. I don't know. Big upper Midwest chain. And you run into everybody you don't want to see there. Enough of the waffling. On to the knitting. Yay, knitting first. Always knitting first with me. It's just the way I am. Love to knit. I have 2 finished objects, 1 hoe and several whips, and a mistake, I think, on one of them. I think it's a big one too. So we'll talk about that. One of those rippy back mistakes. The first one is a hat. This is for a dear person in my life for Father's Day. They like their hats close to their head and to roll up the brim. I've thought about doing a sewn brim, but it would just be lost because what they would do is take the sewn brim and then roll it again, and then there's no hat there. So I decided just to knit it. And this is just off of my brain pan, knit 1, purl 1. I think it's not all off my brain pan. I think what I did was look up how many stitches the Skyping Beanie asked you to cast on. And then I just went from there. The Skyping Beanie is a free Ravelry pattern. So I may have done that. It's probably in my notes. It's not up on Rav yet. And I need to take pictures of these today. I've already gifted these hats. I had to get them back. I had to take them back. Here, give me your gift back. Just so I could show them today. This is a candy corn colorway that I did a few years ago that I thought was too derivative of Thanksgiving, but I really like it. It just wasn't quite working into the plan at the time. I still have the formula. I keep my formulas, all of them. Some of them never get off the sheet of paper I write them on because they're that bad, but that hasn't happened in a while. And then I said, so what do you want? Then their birthday was yesterday. And I said, what do you want for your birthday? I want a hat. Okay. I knit the hat for Father's Day, which they knew about. And I said, what color? Eye-searingly bright tie-dye. That's not who I am. That's not the essence of me. I like my dye formulas to look organic. I want them to remind me of nature. I have eagles. I have a creek. I have Lake Erie, which I can see from my porch. Dang-nibbity. But it wasn't for me. It was for them. So I dyed this, which in the skein, and because I did it on more than one skein. I don't. It just, because the way it fit in the pan, it was better to have 5 skeins. Otherwise, things would not, the colors wouldn't flow the way I wanted them to. So I have these. This is a non-superwash DK. This is my non-superwash DK, which will be coming out in late August. And this is, what is this? I think this is merino fingering. And this is Crunchy Frog. I don't know if I'm keeping it or not. I'm going to put it up on Etsy and see if there's interest. Etsy is a great way to gauge interest. It really is. So I riffed off the Barley Hat by Tin Can Knits, which is, I believe, another free pattern on Ravelry. It's an excellent pattern, by the way. I just didn't feel like doing the garter stitch, and I wanted a really long brim. That was, again, the brim, the head, right down over the ears, just hat. So warm hat, usually for the office because it's cold, I guess, in the IT department. So I just did 1 by 1 rib for the bottom, and I made it extra long because, again, the fold. And again, I decided not to sew it. I decided no pom-pom. The reason the decreases look kind of wonky is A, I have not blocked this hat yet. And I have a problem blocking hats because I can't use balloons anymore. I thought about getting a foam head, but I'm wondering, would that work? Does that work? What do you do to block your hats? Do you block hats? I usually don't. So any hat blocking advice in the comments will be welcomed and possibly passed on. And thank you very much in advance. So I did a moss stitch here instead of the garter stitch on this section of the hat, because I didn't want to do a row of knit, a row of purl. I'd rather do knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, next row, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. So I did moss or a seed stitch, depending if you're here or in the UK, right here. And I forgot the contest. I'll go back to that in a second. I can't believe I forgot it. Oh, well. I'll talk about it. And then I decreased the crown. I put 4. Editing Nancy here. And yes, I'm holding my phone with my hand, so I hope it doesn't move too much. The 2 contest winners, Brooke Chauvelin and Salter Pervesquin, and they have numbers behind their names. They're flashing on the screen. Last month's contest, the first one to get a hold of me can either pick Cherry Blossom Rain or Bonfire. Go the name of my colorway. And the contest comment for prize for the month of June is I've changed the name of this colorway to Skateland because that's what I really named it after, was the local roller skating place. Hi, Kit Kit. The cat is meowing. And it comes with 2 mini skeins. To be eligible to win, all you have to do is leave a kind, constructive, or interesting comment, something about yourself. Just any kind of comment that isn't mean. Okay, I'm going to say it. No mean comments. But so far, everyone has been so incredibly kind. So, there are your prizes. Now I'm going to pet my kitty. 4 stitch markers in and did slip, slip, knit on one side and knit 2 together on the other all the way around. And then a row knit and then another decrease round. So that decreased the hat fairly quickly, giving them the right against the head skull cap feel that this person really, really, really loves. And there are very few people that are this knit worthy that I will dye you something completely out of my wheelhouse. Just maybe 6 in the whole world. No, wait. Brenda and Amy asked me. There are a lot of people I do it for, but they don't need to know that. Just kidding. So this is Crunchy Frog, and this is my Crunchy Frog hat. And because it's riff off Tin Can Knits Barley Hat, I won't be writing up the pattern because that would be stealing, in my opinion. Just do moss stitch instead of your garter stitch. It's just lovely. I'm dyeing in the house today because it's going to be in the upper 70s, which will be enough to put the air on. In fact, the air's on right now. So I've got 2 kettles going. If I have to do any kettle dyeing, I have to do it on my stove. So I'm watching my kettles. They're behind you. The kitchen's right behind you. So those are my 2 finished objects. I have decided to go sans poof or pom-pom because I think it would look like my grandmother Jessie, who I named Jessie's Garden after. Grandma was a character. Her hair was short, except for this chunk in the middle on the top of her head that she would wind into a top knot. And it kind of looks like this. I'm afraid the hat would look like my hairstyle today or my grandma's hairstyle, which is fine, but not particularly what this person wants. And oh, I'm so excited. I so finished this hat. It's all woven in and everything, because sometimes I forget to clip the strings. Although I clipped them here. By golly goodness. No, I didn't. There's one. It needs to be clipped. It's all woven in. Almost lied. Keepers, creepers. Finished objects. Now for the hoe. And oh, am I happy with the hoe. The hoe is what got me my appointment to meet with the yarn store, because I went in, I asked, they work with local dyers, do you have anything you're working on right now with your yarn? I said, yes, here you go. And this is my Ore Carrier colorway. I finished a half off object. I finished a whole sock. Now, if you're looking at this, this is for me. I am 5'2". I promise you, my feet are incredibly, ridiculously long. So are my fingers, like freakishly long. If I hold my hand up to other people's hands, match finger to finger, freakishly long. I should be able to play the piano perfectly. I'm terrible. My mother, in fact, made me take piano lessons because of the long digits. So they're very long. I did my standard fish lipscus heel, 60 stitches all the way around on a size 1. Now this is my just merino base. I've never knit socks without nylon, but I like the feel of this base when I'm knitting with it a little bit better than my sock yarn. There's something about the nylon that's a little slickery, if you will. I like it. I love to knit. Doesn't matter. I'm not that fussy. But if I have a choice, I'd rather knit with a slightly thicker 100% merino. Obviously, this has not been woven in and blocked. I did the standard fish lipscus heel, 10 stitches, and did 10 on each side. So I have 30 stitches to make the heel. Fish lipscus heels by Socks Therapist. The pattern is on Ravelry. I think everybody in the universe knows about it, but you know, that's not true. Not everybody in the universe can know about it. There are lots of people that have started knitting since that particular wonderful pattern came out. I didn't have any problems on the purl side, except a minor looseness on one of my stitches. That's because I wasn't paying attention. My knit side, as usual, looks absolutely perfect. Yeah, it always does. The problem with the fish lipscus heels, sometimes the purl side can be a little bit loose, if that makes sense. People have tried lots of ways to fix it. There are lots of ideas in the Ravelry group, which I will link. So I was terrified I was going to have second sock syndrome. I mean, just freaking terrified. Well, I cast on a mustache this morning because I refused to have second sock syndrome. I wanted to cast on earlier in the week, but with the yarn store meeting, that got kind of, things got moved around and pushed around because of that, because they're having 2 upcoming events that I'm going to dye for. So I wanted to give them some samples. So I dyed some, they're going to be unique colorways. So I dyed those. Anyway, so I've got it in a little orange holder and I'm pulling from the center, except I pulled it off once because I started with this. I put the number of stitches I do. For some reason I halved it, put 1/2 on one side and 1/2 on the other, which is of the original number. What I meant in my notes was it was 10 stitches each side, not 5 stitches each side. I don't know what I was thinking. I must have been tired last night. So I pulled it apart and recast it on with the 10 stitches, and now I am slowly but surely increasing up the foot. This was a long, sloggy. I decided to make, my feet have always been a little short in the socks. My feet aren't short. The socks have been a little short for my feet. This time I decided to go 3 extra rows. Made a huge difference the way the sock fits, but it felt, those 3 rows, they went by very quickly, but for some reason it seemed to add mentally time to knitting in the sock. It added time, obviously, but I mean, it added in my brain pan more time than I thought it would. It just seemed to be sloggy at that point. Okay, so that's my finished objects, my half off the needles. I didn't finish my sweater. My t-shirt. Yarn store. I'm just going to say yarn store because I magpie like crazy when I'm creating new colorways, and I will do them like 3 days to make them perfect. I'll do 3 runs, and yeah, I'm magpie, but I'm very particular magpie. Very particular magpie. In these, and I don't know, I found out that she does not have a pattern for this. She and her daughter made these during the pandemic, but she says she's going to write something down for me, so I'll be able to make my own, and I'm really excited. These little cute project bags are so much fun. Let's go with this one first. So the one thing about this hat was it's the eye searing color, and I thought that I would get really bored knitting this. I thought I would be rolling my eyes, and I was for the first 2 rows. It wasn't particularly pretty the first 2 rows, but the more I knit on it, the more fascinated I became with how the colors were working up, because I don't knit these colors. So as I knit the hat, I couldn't put it down, and I knit it all on Tuesday. So I guess I did have knitting time. Was it Thursday? You know, it was Thursday, not Tuesday. I was watching a very long 4.5-hour podcast, and I finished that. So I had yarn left over. I had quite a bit. This is held, by the way, this is 2 DK held double on size 7 needles, so it's a fairly stiff, warm fabric. This one is looser. It was knit on a looser gauge, and it's more like a fall going into the transitional type hat. So I decided that what I really needed to do with these 2 little balls of yarn is make mitts. And I have them started. What's nice about this, let me see if I can get it going the right way. What's nice about this bag is because I can use these little snaps to snap it. I want more of these bags. I can carry it around with me. I can actually, it's real easy to knit anywhere. The yarn feeds out either side, and you just turn as you finish your row. You just turn the bag. It's fairly easy. I love this bag. I've got to get. They have a website too. If you really like these things, maybe you should email Nitpicky and Hooked in Monroe, Michigan, and say, Laura, that's the owner, we like those bags that Nancy's showing on her. Just, I don't know. Maybe there'll be more of an assortment of bags. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't have time to make bags anymore. But she said she did it with her daughter, so I don't know. So into my other cute little Nitpicky hook bag thing, I'm using as a yarn bowl. This is the Mini Skein Infinity Scarf by Julianne Cole. Sorry, it's Cole, not Call. My E's look like L's. It is $1.99 Australian on Ravelry. This pattern is to use up mini skeins. Now, I don't have advent calendars. I don't make advent calendars. I'm not an advent calendar person. I'm afraid that I wouldn't meet all my deadlines. I just don't know if I could do that. And I love them. But then I'm terrified. Because I don't buy much yarn. And I'm doing this in garter stitch instead of the recommended stockinette. But this little pattern, it's the little pattern that could. It's the little simple pattern, worth the money, absolutely. Buy the pattern if you want this. And you cast on here, and then you eventually sew the ends together. It's not a provisional. It's you sew it together to make yourself an in loop. And if you did it this way, it could be a Mobius loop. So I'm not picking out all of my colors ahead of time. I'm just kind of going with my gut. I have 2 big, they held comforters when I bought them, and they zip, the big comforter zip things. I don't put my comforters back in them. I can never get them to fit back in. I can never fold them so they'll fit in without a struggle. It's like stuffing a sleeping bag, so I don't do that. Instead, I stick my yarn in them. Anything left over, any mini skeins I've dyed to knit. Because once I knit a sample from a mini skein, I still have a lot of yarn left. So this is Pajama Party. This is Orchids. And I'm about to switch because I'm just about out of orchids. And I don't think I'll be able to use it all. And I don't want just this little tiny itty bitty bit of yarn left over. So maybe there's a project in the future. I'll have to think about it because I don't want to get rid of it. Although I understand you can compost it. I thought it took like 300 years to break down. Anybody has information on composting yarn? Yay. I would love that. Composting natural yarn. I wouldn't compost yarn with nylon. Just the wool. So I needed the next color, and I think I'm going to go with Cake Pops. I've been sitting with this, and I don't normally grab 8 balls down. I don't have it all planned out. I'm kind of going on whim. I'm digging through the bag, seeing what I like, and yanking it out. And I decided to make this one all variegated. And I like it so much. I like this pattern so much so far that I'm going to knit one properly that's not in garter stitch. Oh, I didn't lose my little, thought I lost my little nubbins. I'll do one in stockinette stitch, and I can see this as a gift knit for the winter, for Christmas, or birthdays, just for a lot of my, 2 of my friends in particular. I think I would absolutely knit one of these for. In the bed. So far, 10 out of 10. Will knit again. Still knitting on it, but I'm enjoying the knit. I'm working on it just right now, just about 15, 20 minutes a day. Just a little sit down, have a cup of coffee. Although today it's Diet Coke because it's warm. And I didn't fill this with Diet Coke. I filled it with ice and put in very little Diet Coke. I'm going to be thirsty. Oh well. These things sometimes happen. Next up on my needles and my Dancing Sheep dye bag. Dancing Sheep project bag. Why do I say Dancing Sheep dye bag? I don't know. I initially cast this on as a crochet project, but it just wasn't, I don't like crocheting small yarn. That isn't really my bag. I like a DK weight or up, I've learned. So I do have a crochet project in mind, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I decided to kind of, and again, it's a pattern, but I'm not following it. Joji Locatelli's 3-color cashmere cowl. But it won't be 3 colors. It's just, when I first cast it on, it was too many stitches for my neck. It was going to be super wide. And I wanted something fairly narrow because I wanted it to keep me warm. Look good, keep me warm. So I recast on with a few less stitches on larger needles because that's what I do. I like it. I want it to floople down, be warm, cozy around my neck. And so I just cast this on, and right now I'm just doing 1x1 ribbing, just regular ribbing. I'll move into non-ribbing shortly. I'm not going to follow the pattern exactly, but I'm following it pretty closely. I've loved that pattern. I've loved it since I first saw it. I've wanted it, but it was just, so I had to work out a way to make it work on a smaller size. This is a colorway that comes out at Christmas time. It's very subtly speckled. In fact, this year I'm going to do a little more speckling on it. This is Orion's belt. It just reminds me of a night with the moon shining and the stars, but you can sort of see Orion's belt. Just little bits of flecks of almost a purple blue. One of my favorite dye colors, one of my absolute favorite dye colors. And then there's another one in here as well that complements it quite beautifully. And then I think what I'm going to do, and one of the skeins escaped, so excuse me. I have a skein of Blusher Veil. And I have a skein of, mini skeins of Bearded Iris. So I think I'm going to use this for most of the cowl. And they're just mini skeins, so I probably will make it a 4-color non-cashmere cowl. There's no cashmere. In fact, this has got stellina in it. This has got my gold stellina in it, which I don't even have anymore. I've had this around for a long time. This is the end of a pair of socks that I knit off one ball, pulling from the outside and the inside. Never doing that again, ever, 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 ever. It just, for me, it was way fiddlier than I like. I'm happy with magic loop. I have limits. I have limits, and I can't, because my fingers are so ridiculously long. I've said it before. I cannot knit with those tiny little needles. In fact, I'm going to get all my tiny little needles together and stick them in packages with socks or something and give them away. I think if somebody buys a sock set, just randomly, here's a needle, and pay the extra shipping and force myself. So it's just started. I'm not pushing myself on it. It's going to be, I mean, I don't need it till fall. It's not cold enough for a cowl by any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes in the morning it's like 57 right now. Except no, in the house it's no, it's not. I'm sorry. No, I got the numbers mixed up. Sometimes in the mornings in June it can be in the 50s here. In fact, a lot of times in the mornings in June it can be in the 50s here. So sometimes a hat is lovely. The cowl is a bit much. If I'm running at 50 and it's 54 degrees out, I will wear a hat. Although I don't wear one of my knit hats because I like them. I like them a lot. And I don't want to run in them and sweat in them. And because when I run, I get sweaty. You do not need to know that. Sorry about that. You think maybe she'll edit this out later. Nope. I have to go quick and dirty. Like I said, this is the third time I've done this week. Just not going to do it again. Living in my maybe crafted bag, which is clean because Doofus here knocked an entire container of Diet Coke into my project bag, the big project bag that I carry. So I pulled out all the projects that were in there and I got everything out of the bag and nothing in the bags were wet, but they all had to be washed, all of them, and then dried, not in the dryer. But Diet Coke stains out, so hey, that's good. Is my Cumulus t-shirt. I'm not where I want to be yet on this. I had a goal, but yarn store. Let's say it together now. Yarn store. I was going to do this, but yarn store. It's a really fun excuse. I'll tell you what. I was dying for a reason. I'm always dying for a reason. This is my Cumulus t-shirt in my turquoise with Stellina. I want a t-shirt with Stellina in it. I really do. So I decided to knit this up. I am below. I know I've made progress since the last time you saw it. Maybe 2 inches, but certainly I have not finished the body like I intended. And I've decided that since this is the only t-shirty type garment that was due in the month of June that I can take till the end of the month of June. I was going to knit 2 t-shirts in June, but there's a graduation. Jerry's moving probably next week or the week after. He's waiting for a place to open up in a group home. Most of my kids, they said, are on the autism spectrum, and Jerry's going to a place that is going to teach him how to live independently, which he's pretty good at now. So I think he will be there a short while, and then they help him get his first apartment. I won't go over there every day. It's 20 minutes from here, so you know, I'll have to think about it. If I'm running that way, I won't bug him so much. I won't bug him. If he was like around the corner, yeah, I still wouldn't bug him. I don't bug my kids. Although he says, you know, if you want to talk to me, Mom, you got to reach out because I will never text first, which is true. Here's my problem. Now living in my other maybe crafted bag. I think I did it wrong. Doesn't look like the picture. I picked up the stitches from where I thought I was supposed to pick up the stitches, but then now it's getting wider at the top and it's supposed to be getting wider at the bottom. So I am going to have practice ripping. I'm going to rip this out today, what I just cast on, and pick up the stitches and do this part again because I've got to be doing something wrong. I've got to be doing something wrong. I think I'm backwards. I think I should have been going the other way. So yeah, there's that. And I feel kind of doofy for having that problem. But because I want to do this garter stick session because then I get to use my contrast color, which I'm super excited about. Yeah, this is the mauve colorway. It's just one I made up for myself. There's a tobacco leaf colorway here, or brass. Brass is, I think, what I call this. It's brass. And then this is a very unpretty skein of holly, or ball of holly. It's a ball of yarn. I usually cake them up. For some reason that's bald. I don't remember why. So I think I did this wrong. I know I did it wrong. It's supposed to be getting wider down here. I think I was supposed to pick up from the bottom up instead of the top down. But I thought it said the top down. I need to watch Stephen's. I need to see if I need to check for errata, just in case. This was written weird at one point. Although the way he test knits, I doubt. There is some. I know I saw some errata, but it wasn't much. And then I need to bite the bullet. No time like the present. Nice skein. I will rip it back off screen, off camera later. Decision made. Rippy. It wasn't right. It just didn't look like the picture. And I know enough about my knitting now, been knitting long enough, that I can read my lace. That's kind of cool. And if it looks wrong, you're doing it wrong. Don't soldier on. Stop. Make sure. Go back. And that was only, what, 8 rows of garter. No big deal. Going up and down the sides of that shawl is super quick. Super quick. And I really want it. I want to wear, I really want this shawl. I want to wear this shawl. This is Stephen West's pattern. Shawl patterns are very much, to me, they're not for everyone, because no one is. You know, my favorite shawl designers are Helen Stewart and Stephen West. And one is lacy and delicate, and one is more almost industrial, architectural. I love a good architectural knit, like Kohi Okatelli's Imagine When. I want this, and I want it right. I want this to be, I don't want any mistakes. I mean, like 1 or 2 minor, whatever, bobbles, but this is an important enough piece to me that I really want it to be art. And towards that end, in my basement, I am installing a nice hanging rod to place my shawls over and have a wall of shawls. That way they're decorative, not just in a closet in a pile. I have the room to put them downstairs. I think that's a good idea. So that is all for the knitting. Oh, the cumulus. One thing I forgot to mention about the cumulus. I forgot to mention a lot of stuff about the cumulus. I'm knitting this on larger needles. Duh, I always do that. I flip for the sleeves. Oh, I saw a long sleeve version of the cumulus, and I have 3 full skeins. Well, this is 1 full skein, but then I have 2 others. And that's enough. The shirt has sleeves, and I don't know if there are any differences other than sleeves. It doesn't seem to have any differences other than sleeves. And I was thinking, maybe I would put bracelet length sleeves on the cumulus. And I could wear it through the winter. But again, I don't wear a lot of short, long sleeve shirts. I usually wear short sleeve and then layer over. Decisions. I don't have to worry about it until I get to the first arm. I've got time to do it. In my basement, I have found, because I was trying to crochet on fingering weight yarn and larger crochet hook, and I just wasn't digging it at all. It wasn't fun for me. Crochet for me is a fun, relaxing bit of time that I get to make something really fun with. So in my basement, I found 3 skeins of Care Simply Soft in a charcoal color. Now my house is done in grays, yellows, and natural woods. That's kind of my style. It's kind of modern. One of my kids hates modern, so it's always fun to have him listen to him. So I think a little blanket for my couch, just to, you know, put over my lap. I like to be tucked under a blanket, just part of me just tucked under a little bit of a blanket. It's just something I like to do. I like to curl up a little, knit with a little blanket on my lap. Unless it's super hot out. And if I'm outside, there's no blanket. So I could I could crochet. I won't knit with Care Simply Soft, but I will crochet with it. So I could crochet myself a small lap blanket with a very easy stitch. And it would just be one color, unless I go and get some yellow, because gray and like a mustardy yellow, does Care Simply Soft have, they have every color in the rainbow. They probably have a mustardy yellow. Would look nice together, or just even a bright yellow would look nice with that gray. I think I'm going to start that project probably as soon as I get my second sock off the needles and finishing the body of my cumulus. And then figuring out what's wrong with my twists and turns, because I'm sitting knitting on it last night, and this is just wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. This does not look like the picture. You need to stop. You need to stop. Talking myself out of, you know, I wanted just to keep going. It's hard to talk myself. I'm happy to admit I'm wrong. I do it all the time. I have 4 kids. I'm wrong frequently. And they're happy to tell me. It doesn't bother me. And yeah, that's the twist and turn that's really bugging me, because now that I've seen the side go on, even if it's done wrong, let's go. Rock and roll, baby. Let's go. All right, my sewing project, which is funny because I have said many, many times, I will never, ever, ever, ever do this. I will never do it. I wouldn't even touch it. I would never do it. I would just, no, it's not happening in my lifetime, because I have ADHD, and this requires precision, a level of precision that's not required with my dyeing or anything else in my life. So I have coasters from IKEA. And they don't absorb water. And in the summer, it's very humid here in this part of Michigan. My glasses sweat like crazy. And it can make quite a little puddle of water on my furniture. And I don't like that. That bugs me. It just really bugs me. I think that's from my parents. They were very uptight about no water rings on the furniture. So I want coasters. There's a very large cement truck going by and stopping in front of the house. You probably hear it. I have no idea what he thinks he's doing, but there's no need for cement here in the middle of the street. Interesting. Okay. So I've decided that I am going to sew coasters, but not only sew coasters, I am going to quilt my coasters. I'm going to make them about the size, bigger than this, not as big as this part of the fat quarter. So maybe a little smaller. This is going to be the back of all of them. And then the front, I'll break up with this pretty beige floral. And this a lot of geometric shapes. I actually have something else. I thought I had a different fabric downstairs. I'll have to go hunt it up. Because I grabbed these out of the pack. I don't know. I think there might be 2 blue. Maybe these 3 together and bag this. Because they're going to be fairly small. I don't need to go insane with striping up all the colors. I'm going to do them in stripes. The stripes are not going to be exactly matching the width on each one. I want to play with the widths. I don't want to play with the order. I want to play with the widths for the contrast. And I'm going to use a cotton batting for it that I can get at Knit, Picky, and Hook. They're part of Inside Erie Mercantile, which is a quilting store. It's all about quilting. And I have a self-healing mat. I have a very sharp rotary cutter. And I have ADHD, so I am concerned about being tired and having it not be perfectly straight, or saying maybe I don't need to iron this time because my brain is off on doing something else. So I think that the stripes will be the easiest way to handle it. I think that's the way I should go. If you have other ideas, I don't want to do anything fancy. This is just coasters. Just the first time quilting anything. I just want to try it. I can't believe I'm saying that. I figure 6 coasters. I can do 6 coasters. My number 3 just came into the kitchen. Good morning, Hearn. I'm retaping my podcast, the one I cut my head off on. So yeah, and this, I love this fabric. I don't know if you can see it, but it's gold and blue, and it just looks, it's really beautiful, and it goes with the house, and all the yellow in here, which looks like a U of M yellow theme, but it's not. My house is not, although I do have a U of M flag, pillow, decorations in the basement. Maybe I'm a little overboard. I just looked over at my fridge. Let's just say there may be some U of M magnets up there, like a lot of them. Maybe one is holding my Mother's Day cards. Maybe. So yeah, the quilting project. I think I'll have time to start this tomorrow, Sunday. And after that, it should go fairly quickly. It means hauling the iron out, which for some reason, I'm only bringing it into the kitchen from the hallway, which is right behind the kitchen, but I don't like hauling that ironing board around. And then not knocking over the iron, because I talk like this. That's how the Diet Coke got knocked into the project bag. But I figure if I can do this, then I can start doing other things. If I like it, if it looks okay, if I'm not hiding them when company comes over. That's the goal, to be so proud of it, you don't hide it when company comes over. To make a sweater nice enough that you don't feel like you have to change out of it if company comes over. And, you know, yarn overboard. I am not going to be doing a shop update today. I was planning for one, but say it with me. But when I die, and I've cleared this with the person that taught me to do this, one of them, Taylor from Fiber for the People, saves her unused dyes and does something called a Lucky Strike colorway, which is just a one-of-a-kind leftover dye. Here you go. Rebecca from ChemKnits uses something she calls a yarn mop, and I do have permission to use the term yarn mop, and put it out there in the world, although they are my happenstance colorways, but they are essentially yarn mops. What I do when I'm dyeing and I'm going to be getting my gloved fingers in the dye, I'm not throwing away the dye with my gloved fingers, the glove, inside the glove. I'm not doing it. I want to keep reusing the gloves, first of all, because, you know, it adds to the cost. And you don't think of things like gloves. You have to add those into the cost of the gloves, into part of your cost of production. I don't like throwing away gloves. I will not throw away dye. I'm terrified of getting it in the groundwater. So I get out a skein of yarn and I wet it with either vinegar and water or citric acid and water. And I wipe my glove fingers on it as I dye the yarn. And that is a happenstance colorway. There's usually one with, there's usually 2 or 3 a week available in the shop. So these will be going up next week. But, and I haven't reskeined them. I usually reskein my happenstance colorways, but I haven't done that yet this week. This one is a leftover from when I was dyeing a colorway for the shop. This one is from, it's not this colorway. I just had a lot of green. I was doing a lot of stuff with green that day, and I kept wiping my hands, greens and purples and turquoises and pinks, bright, bright pinks, and lichen and some Kelly green speckles. There's all kinds of stuff in here. I had a little extra on my fingers, so I just did some speckling in the, I have it in a little small steam pan, and then I heat it up. Just I heat set it by steaming it. And this one, which is really, I think it's really different and beautiful and subtle, but with lots of pops of color. I think this would make a really neat cowl. And these are both DKs. These will be up next week in the shop. And because I'm wiping my fingers on them, and if I have extra dye, I'm using it to over dye some things. And in fact, this does have, this, I think, I may have poured in some extra green dye and before I heat set it. I can't remember. Doesn't matter because it's one of a kind. It will never be dyed again. It cannot be duplicated. Yeah, you can get something close, but they're not the same. They're not related at all. They're not even friends. So I have no names. They're just happenstance, and they have numbers next to them. Happenstance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you want to see what I dyed for the yarn shop? Okay, for Christmas in July. It's right over here. Grab it. Ugh. I hate having yarn in my house, and if it falls on the floor, then it's I hate having yarn in the house because of the animals. I keep it clean, but you know, it's my precious. Is my precious. I vacuum like crazy in this area before I even brought this yarn in here. Look, one of my hairs worse than the cat's. So for the Christmas in July colorway, yes, sorry about that. So for the Christmas in July colorway, I did 3 different colorways. I got one. This is Sunburned Santa. This is really fun to dye because it's done in 2 vessels with different steps. It's just really fun, but it's not so many steps that it's like, I don't want to dye that. You know, it's fun. It was fun dye. It was really fun to dye. So that's Sunburned Santa. And then I like the mini skein of this better than the full skein. I'm going to go back and put more speckles on the full skein. This is called Blizzards and Beaches. You see, I like the skein a little more. See, a little more speckles. See, pretty. Yeah, this is beautiful too. Do not get me wrong. And this one is named after a Bob and Doug McKenzie song. They're 12 Days of Christmas. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It talks about 5 golden toques. I don't remember all the words. And then, and a beer in a tree. This is a beer in a tree. If you know anything about the state of Michigan, you might be able to guess which beer label I was using as my inspiration and had. I don't die from pictures. I died from a beer label that I had up my computer screen. Sadly, I have not had any of this beer this summer. This is the colors of the Oberon label. Oberon is brewed by Bell's Beer. They do not pay me to say this. They do not pay me to like it. It'd be nice if they would. I'd like a few of those this in the summer. It's a wheat beer. It's light. It's always served with an orange, and it is delicious. It is, if I'm going to drink beer in the summer, and usually I have 1 or 2, I'm not a big beer drinker. It's always an Oberon. Always. I like it. It's good. It's also like 5 billion calories, so that's why I don't have it very often. Then yesterday, when I was filming this and chopping my head off, when I said that, my poor son looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, no. And then I cut it off in the film. Oh, it felt so bad. They kind of go together, and this is the way she was leaning, was these two, because she liked this very much and loves the name. But if she said, she's going to buy limited runs of these two, and that's great. These are unique colors for her shop, which means I'll be able to put this one up in my shop, these up in my shop, and keep this in the formulas. And eventually I'll move these. Eventually, when she's not exclusive anymore, I usually can get colorways. I have the right to get colorways back and dye them after the shop is done using them as an exclusive colorway. So eventually I'll be able to put these up in the shop. So both of these events are in July. So this is Christmas in July, and I think she's going this way. She's so easy to work with. Oh my gosh. I work with a lot of yarn store owners, and some are super, super easy to work with, and some are a bit of a challenge, but I'm sure that people feel that way about me. She's nice. She dyes nice yarn. She's a little loony. That's okay. I don't mind it. I am who I am. And that's my best advice when you talk to people, is be who you are. Unapologetically. So then for the road trip, and is her second yarn crawl. It's actually a maker's 2-week event. It's a maker 2-week event. And so I thought about road trips that I love. And one of the road trips I really love is M22. It's the Leelanau Peninsula. It starts in Frankfurt and it goes, I don't know if I'm right or wrong here as far as Michigan goes. It starts at Frankfurt and goes up around the Leelanau Peninsula. And it is one of the most beautiful drives. I would put it up against any other drive in any other state except maybe parts of the Shenandoah Valley, parts of California. But other than that, this is a gorgeous drive. You're in the woods, you're in the woods, you're in the woods. You come around, the dunes are on either side of you, the old growth dunes. And then you go around a corner and all of a sudden there's Lake Michigan with its waves and it's magnificent. Lake Michigan is, if you've never seen a Great Lake, I can't describe it to you. You need to see one in your lifetime. They are so unique and awesome. I can't even tell you it looks like an ocean. People don't believe me. It's a lake. These things are humongous. If you've seen Great Lake, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, may I suggest going to Traverse City and driving M22, going to a few wineries, things like that. That's very far from me, but so I dyed 3 different colorways using the same dyes at 3 different depths of shades and doing a couple different application techniques. So this is the first one I presented, and it's very dark and foresty. And this is the second, which is very lake-like. And then there's the third. And I have to admit, I kind of pushed her this way because I think this is the best of the three for M22. I think this represents M22. You've got the aquas in here and the turquoises and the greens for the trees and the soft sandy feel. I think it works. And she liked it. So I think we're going with that one. So yay. And these will be going into the permanent collection. This is going to be forestry. And this is going to be Kettle Lake. And there's just, because we have Kettle Lakes all over Michigan. And Kettle Lake is a lake that was formed when the glaciers were leaving the state, when they were saying, sayonara to you. And they left the depressions in the ground that filled with water. Eventually they'll fill in a few thousand years, but right now we have a lot of wonderful lakes. So that is all the news that's fit to print. No shop update this week. It'll be next week, and it'll be a fairly sizable one with some new colorways, and more yarn mops. And I've had a really good time chatting today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend if you're seeing this on the 17th of June, 2023. If you see it later, I hope you have a great week. I hope you have just the best joy you can possibly have, and do something kind for yourself, because you may be the only one that's doing something kind for yourself today. So do something kind for you. So you can't take care of everyone else if you can't take care of yourself. Bye.